Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado.
I want you to think about this for a second. Imagine you're earning $350,000 a year. Pretty good, right?
Right.
Not too bad. Only trouble is you're not able to pay all your bills just to get by. So you end up borrowing $100,000 a year on top of that, and that puts you in good shape. You can fund the things you need to do, and you can stay solvent as long as you can borrow $100,000 a year. So you're bringing in $450. Now, what if you had unfunded liabilities? So you owe people $14 million.
Wow.
On top of that.
Yeah.
You're insolvent, correct?
Yeah. A little bit.
What if I told you this wasn't an individual, but this was a government? What do you think they would have to do to get out of that situation? I'm Daniel Adjemi.
And I'm Andrew Adjemi. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. We're back after our break and looking forward to speak with you more about the new invisible tax. And as we've been speaking and talking today, we're talking about how inflation is that tax. Nothing new, but coming back and potentially coming back with a vengeance with things that are on horizon with the new administration and some of the other things going on, because the debt is growing and we have to do something about it. And Daniel, that's what you're talking about. That's what you're referring to in regard to that example of a $350,000 income, but it's not enough to live on. So you need another $100,000 a year to be able to fund the things that you do in life. But you have $14 million that you owe. And, no bank would ever allow an individual to get away with that kind of situation, as far as I know. But yet the government is able to do it. So your question is, how would you take care of that if you were a government? And the answer is?
Well, you have two options, right? And let's put this, we tried to make those numbers realistic for people to work with in their head, because people can't compute trillions, but those are trillions. So tax revenues in 19 were like $3.5 trillion. They had a deficit, so they borrowed another trillion to pay what they needed to do to pay the government's bills. Yep. And there's 140 trillion of unfunded liabilities.
Wow.
So what are the options? Now, this was before COVID, okay? This was before COVID. So COVID brought in trillions and trillions and trillions, and it will bring in trillions and trillions and trillions more of deficit financing because of the infrastructure bills that were committed to, the basically $2 trillion bills that's in the government right now that's looking like it's about to get passed. And so this is all on top of these ridiculous numbers.
Okay, so Daniel, for our listening audience, I know there's people in the audience that are probably saying to themselves right now, Daniel, but the deficit is like 27, maybe $30 trillion, but you're talking about $140 trillion of unfunded liabilities. Help us all understand the difference between those two, because those are two different things you're talking about. The deficit versus unfunded liabilities are two different things. So give us an example of the unfunded liabilities.
Right. So the deficit, right, the 27 you had referenced earlier, that is typically that had been, China maybe has a surplus with their trading with us. So they say, okay, well, let us buy $1 trillion of your treasury bills. And we'll borrow, you can borrow that money from us and you can spend that. So that's how it had typically been. Now the biggest borrower, the biggest buyer of that debt as we issue it to fund, we said 100,000 or $1 trillion of unfunded, of money just to pay the bills.
Right.
So right now the Federal Reserve is basically creating money and buying the debt of the US government so that they can get that treasury. So the Federal Reserve is making that up. right? Because other countries aren't really buying the debt anymore like they used to. It's really basically the Federal Reserve or maybe banks. The unfunded liabilities are things that we're used to, like Medicare or Social Security, public health debt, pensions, right? Government pensions, and then other liabilities, other things that they owe maybe to other places. But those healthcare, those are the kinds of things that equals. So things that they've promised to people, right? Social Security, you were promised your pension. If you ever worked for the government, right?
Sure.
Those are promises that they've already said that they're going to give out, but where's the money coming from? And that's why we're talking about this, because this is what you got to start figuring out, how to protect yourself from this. Because you asked, what is the way to get out of that? Well, there's really two ways, right? You can restructure the debt. So tell the people, we're not going to give you what we promised you.
Which that's not going to happen.
Inflate it away.
Ouch. So, that is a sobering thought, to inflate it away. And that's where we started at the top of this segment with the example of, the last segment with the example of the Mustang GT in 1982 versus what it would cost you today. And that's in purchasing. But that's why this is an invisible and hidden tax, because it's going to hit our bank accounts, and it's going to make us as individuals go into more debt as we go to be able to fund the things, because we're not going to have the money that we need to do that. I need to remind you that you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. Today's topic is the new invisible tax. And we're giving out a paper to go along with today's show. This one is called The Signs That You're with the Wrong Financial Advisor. Do you have to advise your advisor, or does your advisor advise you? Signs that you're with the wrong financial advisor. We'd love to give you out this paper so that you can know what questions to ask your financial advisor and whatnot. And this is available by just free for no obligation, 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616. We'll be glad to get that out to you when you speak with Megan Asker for the financial advisor paper. All right. So we're glad to be speaking with you about this stuff today. And when we're talking about this devaluation, Daniel, where they had to devaluate, inflate the money away. And we've had this is nothing new to the U.S., right? As far as devaluation goes, they did it in the 30s and they did it in the 70s, right?
So people say, well, we'd never do that, right? The U.S. has never defaulted. And it's definitions. You're always talking about definitions. It's definitions. Yeah. Well, what do you call a default? There's not really defaults anymore. Companies never say we defaulted. They just say we're going to restructure. And so in 1933, the government purchased gold from all the citizens, right? They paid them $20 per ounce. And then they immediately changed the price of gold to 35, I think it was. So that was a 60% devaluation in one day, right?
Well, yeah, and you're very kind when you said the government purchased that, but some people would have said they confiscated it, but because you didn't have a choice with it, right? It's kind of like eminent domain with your land, and the government wants it, and they're buying. Yeah, they'll buy it from you, but who says it's going to be worth what it's really worth when they buy it from you? So that's what happened with the gold, right? That they took that and they gathered that all up and took that back, and they changed the pricing.
Right. And then it happened again. It happened again in 1971, where they removed the dollar from the gold standard, which made it free floating, which up until that point, the world used the US dollar as the currency, and everything was based upon that because it was backed by gold. Well, they took it off of the gold standard. And so now people still have this myth inside their head that the dollar is really backed up by something, but it's not. And that's where MMT comes in. And maybe we should do a whole show on MMT, because people probably don't know what we're talking about when I say MMT. But now we can create as much money as we want because it's not backed by anything. And so that is stealing money out of your bank account. That's stealing money out of your pocket. And you have to start asking the questions. How do I protect myself from this? How can I take advantage of this, right? If you can see things happening before they happen, you can take advantage of that and you can profit from that. And that's what we want investors to do. That's why we're offering these white papers and these kinds of things. And we're bringing these ideas to people. Hopefully we're bringing good questions so people can start asking these questions, because if you can take advantage of this while things are cheap, before this is all priced in, you can get insurance on that and stay ahead of it. Then you can ride it up and you can profit. Now, you don't want to see other people get hurt, but at least you're not going to suffer because you're understanding how these things will affect you, affect your assets, affect your lifestyle. And that's what we're all about here at Ajami Financial, right? Yep. Helping retirees especially protect the lifestyles that they have, that they want, and that they deserve.
Right. Exactly. And I think in what you were just talking about, having this information, I thought I heard you say by being proactive, by being able to have this information and doing things before they hit the fan, everything hits the fan, that you're going to have insurance against that. You're going to be able to hedge against that. And what I would like to change that word from insurance, because insurance people, that word means a lot of things to a lot of people, and they get all freaked out about, I don't like insurance. I don't like insurance. Well, maybe a better word to use for what I think you're referring to is assurance. You'll have assurance that you'll be able to be taken care of. And like you said, it's not that you want other people to do badly, but you can't speak for, you can't do for other people, but you can do for yourself. And that's like the key that we're talking about here. So I want to remind you, and we're going to have to take a break here. And we are listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Ajami, because people don't know what people don't know. So we want you to know these things, because you're not going to hear them. You're not going to hear this stuff, generally speaking, in other places. So we have for you today a white paper or a companion piece goes along with today's show. It signs that you're with the wrong financial advisor. And we want to let you know this so that you can find the right one. We're going to be speaking to that more in the next segment, but signs that you're with the wrong financial advisor. And it's not that we don't want to work with everybody. So it's not like we're trying to say, you got to work with us. No, we just want you to be able to get somebody that you can use that's going to do what's in your best interest and help you in that way. We also have, to the next 5 callers, the book available, Tax Invisible. Tax Invisible. Make your money tax invisible so that the government doesn't know about it and you're not going to pay any tax on it. That's what this is about. We'd love to get you that book to the next 5 callers, or the white paper, the companion piece, signs that you're with the wrong financial advisor, by calling 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616. We'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to ajami.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.